Hello everybody, my name is Barry Johns and this is Studio Talk. For those of you who've been watching my other videos, I want to thank you a lot. Your comments have been encouraging and the discussion back and forth amongst you is really inspiring to me, which is kind of what I'm trying to do with this channel, create an open dialogue for discussion and talk about the things that we all enjoy. As you can tell by the title of this particular video, we're going to talk about control surfaces today. You know, obviously I kind of brought you in by talking about the faders, but faders are on control surfaces if you don't know. You know, I've been using control surfaces for probably 10 to 15 years. I remember, as some of you may know already, I'm primarily a Pro Tools user, but I also use Logic a lot as well. But I would say the majority of my experience over the last 15 years or so has been Pro Tools. I have dabbled in all the other DAWs, and maybe you call it DAWs, you know, like I'm a guitar player, I call it 412, you probably call it 4x12, but anyway, I think we're on the same page. But I've experimented with the majority of them, be it Cubase, be it Logic, obviously, Digital Performer, Pro Tools. There's some newer ones out there that are great. Today, whatever makes you feel comfortable. There is no such thing as the industry standard anymore. You know, that's gone by the wayside, and for good reason. You know, the only advantage of sticking with the same DAW is if you, you do a lot of work with friends and you collaborate and things like that. It makes that process so much easier. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. So I started with control surfaces, again, probably maybe 12 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And I started with Pro Tools with the Command 8. Now, that was an outstanding control surface for the money back in the day. And today, I think you can pick one up for about 250 bucks, and it's still a great control surface for the money if you're using it with Pro Tools. It doesn't have all of the advantages that you can get with Yukon today, but it is tied to just Pro Tools and Pro Tools alone. After that, I eventually navigated and graduated, I should say, up to the Pro Control. I actually got an incredible deal. I've been very lucky with getting great deals on control surfaces used. I buy almost all of my gear used. I rarely buy something new. But I got a great deal on a 32-channel Pro Control. And you talk about that thing looking great, and it was massive. And it was a room much bigger than this, and it took up almost the entire width of the room. Because the faders are so far spaced apart. And I used that for a lot of years, and I guess maybe about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, but roughly in that time frame, I purchased what I have right now, which is a 24-channel DigiDesign D command. And the integration with Pro Tools on that is off the charts. I would argue that it's better than current S3s or any current Avid home studio based person. You know, I'm not going to compare it with the big S6s and things like that. I have to imagine those have to be better for the price. They better be for the money. But this thing is really, really, really well integrated within Pro Tools. Fantastic. I actually got an email the other day. I think it's called Nutric, or it's the company that writes code to be able to use not DAWs, but control surfaces like the Pro Controller, like the D command with other DAWs. And so I'm going to help them beta test some of the things to see if we can, develop ways to be able to use this with Logic and other DAWs. So that'll be exciting. I'm very happy to be part of that program. But anyway, to say the least, I have a lot of experience with control surfaces. And I feel like I can speak about my experiences. Now, your experiences may be different. Today, I'm going to talk about mine. I'm also going to talk about what I've experienced and communication back and forth with other users of control surfaces over the many years. I've always been fairly active in a lot of the recording forums out there. I enjoy talking about it, which is kind of the inspiration for me doing these videos. And I really enjoy that. So I've gotten a lot of feedback from other folks, and I was laying in bed the other night and I was thinking, man, that would make a great video. I should probably do that. And so that's where we are today. So back to the original discussion. Control surfaces, they look amazing. Whether it's an 8-channel, 16-channel, 24, 32, no matter how far you go with it, when you walk into a home project studio and you've got a control surface, it looks great. And for people who don't know anything whatsoever about what we do, it's impressive as all get out. If you're bringing clients into your studio, maybe you're mixing, maybe you're just recording vocals, doing some, overdubs, or, maybe you're doing guitar tracks or bass tracks. A lot of us don't have the space to do drums and things like that, or more importantly, the proper room to really effectively do that. So we limit ourselves to those type of recording. And of course, a lot of us use virtual instruments as well. But you know, when you think about it, when you walk in and see that, man, it's impressive. I'm going to tell you, that thing back there, it is the centerpiece of my studio. It looks fantastic. And it makes me feel good when I walk in just to look at it. If I never used a single thing on it, it looks great, okay? And I happen to got a great deal on that one. I'll share that with you right now real quick. There was a clearinghouse. I guess the studio went out of business out in LA, and I don't think they were used to dealing with music gear. And so they had no idea what they had. And so I bought the main unit, which at the time was going for about $4,500 to $5,000 just for the 8-channel main part of it. And I got it for like $1,700. I couldn't believe it, $1,700. And then as soon as I saw it, I mean, I didn't even think about it. I didn't talk to my wife. I did nothing. Buy it now. And I bought it. Then I went back and looked later on that afternoon, and they had the 16-channel expansion pack for $1,100. That was unbelievable. So what do you think I'd do? I hit buy it now. I didn't talk to my wife. I don't think I ever told her that I spent the money. Don't recommend doing that, but that's what I did. And I bought it. And then I got an incredible deal. These things just came at me all of a sudden. Maybe the man upstairs says, hey, we're going to bless your studio or wherever you look to for that type of thing. It came from somewhere. That's all I got to tell you. There was a post facility. I live in Central Florida, and there was a post-production facility in Atlanta that was selling the Argosy desk that it's in that's custom made for the Control, it's not the Control 24, but the D Command, and I got it for $500. That thing's like $2,800 if you bought it new when I got it. So I went and I rented a U-Haul trailer and I drove up to 6 hours up to Atlanta. I packed it in, stayed overnight, and drove it home and set it up in here, and here we are. So I know that doesn't really relate to the conversation, but hey, look out for good deals. So anyway, let's get back on topic. So I've been using control surfaces for a very long time, and there are times I've had love-hate relationships with them, and I think for a lot of people, they can be a godsend to your workflow and your productivity. When you really embrace it and really learn every aspect of that control surface, you can really get great mileage out of it, okay? But if you're not willing to dedicate the time that it takes to do it, you're likely to resort back to your muscle memory of your mouse and your keyboard shortcuts. So let's talk about muscle memory, okay? That is vital to being able to truly maximize a control surface. Hang on, I'm going to reach down here real quick. I'm not a professional video guy, so if I bend over, just deal with it. Okay, so a lot of you guys have seen this bad boy. I'm trying this bad boy out right now, putting it through its paces. If you're not aware, this is Solid State Logic's control surface for their SSL native plugin, as well as their bus compressor. And as you can see, it is laid out in the exact orientation of their plugin. They actually redesigned their plugin to make it match this, and now this kind of matches, you know, what you see in most other manufacturers' SSLs plugins. But this is just for that. And you know what it's for? It's for really two plugins. It's for the SSL native and then the bus compressor in the middle. You know, I'll be giving you my opinions on the control surface itself, not the plugins. If you want to learn about the plugins, hey, there's a free demo. Go get it yourself and then play around with it yourself. But I'll be talking about my experiences with that. I'm not so sure if I'm going to keep it yet, but stay tuned for more information on that. So to take advantage of that, just talk about that one alone for a second. You've got to have great muscle memory. And I would argue that, a control surface like that, which is just dedicated to the plugin, and you could argue that, does that make sense? But let's don't go there right now. But the key to be able to maximize, you got to get muscle memory down where you just don't even think about it. You immediately know where you're going to do, what EQ curve you're going to do, what frequency you're going to do, and all of the like. How much you're, where the gain and reduction is, for each individual frequency. You got to get muscle memory. You got to be able to do that if it's going to make sense to you. Otherwise, you'll find you're just already so used to using a mouse, you're likely even though that control surface is in front of you, you're most likely going to reach for that mouse and that keyboard shortcut simply because it's what you're used to, which means what? Muscle memory. So, if you're going to let's say you don't have one right now, and this, Or you have one right now, but you feel like you're just not getting the most out of it. Looks cool and everything. You like the idea of it, but you question whether or not you're getting the efficiency that you need out of it to justify the expense. We all have to spend our money wisely. We're none of us, well, I'm not rich, let me tell you that. So I just can't buy everything. Everything I've got in this studio has been amassed over decades, okay? I rarely sell equipment unless I'm upgrading it to something better. But rarely do I sell something and not replace it with something. And so ultimately, I want to get the most value for my money. And when you're looking at a lot of control surfaces, whether SSL's got a great one, I think it's called the U8 or something like that. You can look that up. Of course, there's the Mackie MCU. You know, their Avid makes quite a few of them. There's quite a few great ones out there that do a great job. You know, you'll find limitations with most non-Avid control surfaces. You're going to find limitations within Pro Tools. And so I caution you in that. If you're a Pro Tools user, do not consider anything but Avid control surfaces. That's just my advice, my experience. I had an MCU back in the day. I was an earlier adopter of that. That was back in a time where I was exploring different DAWs. You may call them DAWs. I call it DAW. But regardless, you know what I mean. And I experimented with a lot of those. And so that MCU enabled me to kind of utilize it on all of those while I was experimenting over about 6 months to a year at the same time while I was using Pro Tools. Again, I had to force myself to leave Pro Tools alone no matter what I wanted to do, no matter how fast and how good I was at it, and dedicate it just to that DAW. Otherwise, I'm not really truly going to know whether or not that's going to be comfortable for me or not. And so ultimately, I have experience with that one. And we talked about my DigiDesign slash, well, I guess all of mine are DigiDesign. I don't have any Avids. I've used Avid control surfaces, but they all basically do the same thing. So at the end of the day, you know, you've got to be able to get your mileage out of it. And you've got to ask yourself, am I getting my mileage out of my control surface? Does it justify what I've spent on it? Or would it make more sense for me just to sell it and buy something else? Or I've been dreaming of a control surface forever and I really want one. Well, I'm going to ask you, question why you want one. What is it you want? Look, if you just want to buy it to look cool and you got money to burn, then do it. But make sure, if that's not the case, that you're going to be able to get your mileage out of it, because you may find that you may not use it. My advice, if you get a control surface, turn your computer monitors off, no matter how many you have, and focus just on the mixing aspect of it and plugins, okay? Yes, with control surface, you can do editing in the edit window. I would still argue that today it's better to do that with a mouse. I don't care what control surface you've got. But if you're moving faders and you're doing plugins and you're writing, well, we could have a debate about automation. I still find it easier and more effective to draw automation versus do it with a control surface, because it's hard to get that consistency where I can draw that perfect line. But let's just say faders and plugin control. You know, if you're fast at it, that can be really fast, especially if you like to mix fast. And so turn your monitors off. Just turn them off and do not turn them back on when you're mixing. Force yourself to get in and have to learn that thing. I even set my computer keyboard and mouse, I move them out of the side where I can't even grab them. If I can't do everything I need to do, okay, with the exception of a few odd little things that may pop up with my control surface, then I'm simply not getting the most out of it, because they will do the work that you want to do, or at least the vast majority of them will. So you're going to have to dedicate your time to get in there and really, really learn that. If you don't do that, in this guy's opinion, the cost is simply not likely to be justified unless you're doing it for bling. I enjoy bling just like you. I'm going to show a video of bling of that bad boy behind me kind of while I'm talking. You know, that's what's called Vegas mode, which is kind of a demo mode, and others some moving up and down that I filmed for you before. But, you know, it's cool looking at that stuff. It's cool watching that stuff. And if you're really good at using it, it's a powerful, powerful tool. I'm not so sure my skill set and where I'm at, not my skill set because I know how to use it, I should rather say the amount of time that I actually spend doing this thing that we love, recording, because, you know, I got kids, I've got a job, I've got other things. You know, some of you guys are younger guys and you can spend every waking hour doing that. I can't. So again, these things you have to evaluate. But, you know, I think you've got to really learn to get in there and learn how to use it. Otherwise, you're not going to get what you're looking for from it, or not likely to. And so you should always consider that. Maybe you buy one and you buy it from Sweetwater or whatever manufacturer who has great return policies, and you use it for a month or whatever their return period is. And if you can get the value of it, if you can't get the value of it, you're probably not going to learn every aspect of it in a month, even truly dedicating yourself to it. But you should be able to good feeling. If you can't, box it back up and return it. I don't suggest doing that just to try it and see. I'm only suggesting if you really, really, really want to consider it, like I did with that solid state logic piece down there, then try it out. Otherwise, consider something else. When you think about it, a lot of the great mixers of today, they don't use control surfaces. Just think about all the webinars and things like that you see. Let's talk about Pensado's Place or, some of the others out there. And, a lot of them, they don't use, I would argue, most of them, if they're not mixing on a true analog console, they're probably not using a control surface. You rarely actually ever see that, and you got to wonder why. These guys have all the money in the world, okay? They're not like mega million rich, but they're doing pretty darn good, better than you and I likely. And they can afford to buy control surfaces if they want to, but they don't. They use, a lot of them are into trackballs and things like that, and that's what they use. And I know I'm super fast with the mouse and a keyboard shortcuts. Like I said, I go back and forth between Logic and Pro Tools a lot. And so when I go to Logic, obviously that control surface back there does not control Logic. I mean, obviously, I think I talked about the Nutric thing before and being part of that program. So maybe eventually that'll come out and I'll explore that for sure. But today I have to do keyboard shortcuts and everything else and learn that. And so I'm super fast at it. And that's what kind of reminds me from time to time, does a control surface for me make sense? Today I have no intentions of selling my control surface because I do know how to use it and I get good use out of it, but I've also been doing this for a long time. Honestly, today, if I were starting from scratch, I'm not so sure I'd get one. Some of you may not want to hear that, and some of you that are watching this who love your control surfaces, you may not want to hear that. Remember, I'm talking about me. You got to make the decision for you. Only you can do that. But for me, I'm not so sure I'd get one, just because of how fast I am with keyboard shortcuts in my mouse. It's like anything else, muscle memory. I can't say that enough. To get the most out of your control surface, you got to be great at muscle memory. So hopefully today's conversation has got you thinking about whether a control surface makes sense for you or not. I would ask that for those of you, what your experience, if you have experiences, both positive and negative, if you had one and sold it, if you just bought one, you're in love with it, whatever it is, talk about that in the comment section below. Let me hear from you and let each of you hear from each other. I think open dialogue is really important about these things because we all want to learn from each other. All of us love the idea of a mixing console. We all do. Just think of Sound City for a second and that iconic Neve board that today is in Dave Grohl's home studio, okay? Now that's not a control surface. That's a real die-hard, amazing, freaking honest console, okay, that I would kill to have a couple recording sessions with. I'd love to experience that, but I'm not likely to ever do that. I've got a few Neve preamps back there, or Neve emulations. Not emulations, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. I've got some 500 series units and some regular 19-inch rack units that are other manufacturers who clone Neve. I guess that's Neve clones, I should say. And I love them. I love the sound of those. But anyway, my whole point behind that is it looks amazing. Just the idea of all those faders moving around just looks killer. And your ability to touch and feel, it's an experience. And for some, that experience may be enough justification alone. If it puts you in the zone and makes you feel good about what you're doing, you're most likely going to make better choices. But if you find you're reaching for that mouse and keyboard quite frequently, you should probably ask yourself, does that control surface make sense? So anyway, that's it for today's conversation. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Like I said in the beginning, this is the infancy of this particular YouTube channel. I'm going to keep doing this whether you watch or not because I simply love talking about this stuff. But if you do watch and you do like it, do me a favor. Hit that like button, that subscribe button, and what, oh, that notification bell, whatever there's popping up below, just hit the things down there, especially the subscribe and the notification. That way you'll know when I put a new video out. I'm going to try to put one out every week, and give you guys something to think about and to talk about, and give me something to talk about on my own, because like I said, I love talking about this stuff. So you know what you should do? Until next time, you should have a great day.